For this recording, I wanted to have a look at how we can create a gear mechanism similar to this one here using Spur gears. Now, we could spend a lot of time drawing out these gears, but as I've found by having a look at the fantastic video by Chris and Jim, there is a way to actually create gears really easily using a Spur Gear tool, which somebody has written for us in Onshape. Makes life much easier. Chris and Jim have done a fantastic video, as I said, but they've dealt with it using imperial measurements, so I wanted to create my own video that used metric for my students to use. Okay, so the gear mechanism itself consists of two wheels, one of 48 teeth and one of 12 teeth, and we're going to try and get them to mesh together so that then we can actually put them into an assembly, like so, and be able to then get one gear to drive the other gear, and of course animate our recording as well. Okay, so we can record it as an animation as well. Okay, so there's some quite nice parts to this. Okay, to start off with then, you need to make sure that you have an extra tool added to your imported tools here. So to do that, you need to go to the tool section here and go to add custom features. You'll probably just see the plus sign at the moment, but you need to add custom features. And the tool you're looking for is called Spur Gear. So we look for Spur Gear, okay, search for that, and it will load up various examples of different spur gears that are out there. Okay, all right. You want to try and find the one that I've got, which is called, it's just called Spur Gear. Yeah, I think it's probably that one. So that one. So if you clicked on that, that will install that particular feature to you. Okay, and that will then add a new part here. If I do it to mine, I would lose this one here. So it's just called that one. So it's the official version 9 one that you want. Okay, okay. It's a feature script. So once you've got that in place, that means then you have that as a tool. And whenever you're on a surface, you can then add a gear onto that surface. Okay, so let's try this. So I'm going to do a new part studio. Okay, so I've got a new area here. I'm going to click on my front work plane to start off with, and then go to my plus sign here and just choose Spur Gear. And that will place a gear onto my front work plane using the origin as its center for it. Now by default, it's got the number of teeth as being 25 here. I only want 12 teeth for this. Okay. And the other driving factor that I have is the pitch diameter that I'm going to be using for it. Okay. So I'm going to have this be quite a large one, so I'm going to set this to 60. Okay, so there's a nice big gear with 12 teeth going around it. Okay, the other part to note is the module, and this is a section that enables the teeth to actually match up on your second gear. So you want to make sure that the second gear you create has the same module number. Okay, you can also have a diameter pitch or the circular pitch, but as long as they match, by default it comes up with a module there. We don't need to look at pressure angle or anything like that for the moment. We can look at those later on. We could though put a centre bore going through the middle of our gear. At the moment that's got a default of 10 millimeters, which means that I can put a spindle for this to rest on, or a pivot of 10 millimeters. That's fine. I could also add a keyway as well onto it, which gives me a slot that it could use to actually lock onto a channel as well. But there's our keyway there. For the moment, we'll leave that one off. We'll just have that. Okay. Right. So that gives you my first gear created. Okay. So just remember that the module number is this part here. The module number is really important. Right. Green tick that. Okay. So that gives me one gear. So if we click on the Spur Gear tool again, it will create a second gear. Again, by the default of 25 millimeters. But I want this to have a larger number of teeth, so I'm going to give this one 48 teeth this time, 48 teeth, okay? And my module value, I need that to still be on 5, so it's going to match the other one, okay? All right, and we'll green tick that and see what happens here. There we go. So there's a new gear there. It's worked out what diameter pitch it needs to be able to create the 48 teeth with the same module value, for you. So I didn't need to actually change the patch or the pitch circle diameter because it worked that out by knowing the number of teeth and the module value. If you remember, the module value on the previous one was 5mm as well. So these teeth should mesh with this. Okay, right, but as you can see, they've appeared right on top of each other, which we'll move around in a minute. Okay, right, let's bring back my front work plane. Okay, right. So we can see that. And let's have a look at swinging this so we're looking straight at it. Okay, so what I want to do, I need to draw now a line that's going to come across here, and it's got to have a relationship between the two of these. So the length of the line is I need to determine how much I'm going to transform this large gear to move it so that the smaller gear can actually mesh with it properly. Okay, so to work that out, I need to know the pitch diameter of the first gear, which is 60, okay, and the pitch diameter of the second gear, which is 240. Okay, so I've got to do some maths here and say 240 plus 60 gives me 300. Divide that by 2 should give me then 150. Okay, agreed? Yeah, that should be okay. Right, so let's put a new sketch onto the front work plane. So I'm going to click on my front work plane. Okay, and I'm going to draw a line coming from the origin. I'm going to go this way, and it needs to have a length of 150. So when I'm almost there, there's 147, and make sure that it's horizontal as well. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 150. So remember that was the first pitch diameter of 60, which is my small gear, plus the pitch diameter of my second gear, which was 240. Okay, divide that by 2 gives you 150. So this is the distance that I need to move one of my gears to mesh with the other one then. Okay, so let's green tick that. So then now I can then, did I not? I may not green ticked it. Did I green tick it? Green tick it. There you are, yeah, green tick it. Right, so there's my sketch. Now the problem is that in order to transform one of these, that sketch needs to happen before the other two. So I'm just going to drag this up to there, so it's before the other two, okay? Before the two gears were in place there, okay. Why is that not? It's okay. Don't know why that's. It's not happy with that being there. Let's try it there. No. Oh, it's happier there. Okay, that's fine. Right. Okay, so then now let's transform. So I'm going to choose my transform tool, which is here, transform. Okay, and I'm going to move one of my parts. So the entity I want to move my, let's move the large gear. So let's pick that one up. And the line that I wanted to move it along is going to be this line here. And that should transform over. Yes, there we are. Okay, we've still got the ghost of it here until we've actually clicked the green tick there. So that's moved that over exactly the distance that we need for this. Oh, actually, you know what I didn't do? I didn't put a centre bore in the second gear, did I? That's 10mm as well. Let's put that in. There we are. And then green tick that. There we are. Now I've got a central bore there. Okay, so now I've got my two gears here. As you can see, they should eventually mesh up, but they're overlapping at the moment, but we'll look at that and solve that little problem later on. The first thing we need to, or the next thing we need to do is to decide on how we're going to draw a support or a background piece for this. Okay, so for this, I'm going to take my original line that I had here, and I'm going to do a quite clever thing. I'm going to use my slot tool for this. So I'm going to just open up that sketch again, and I'm going to slide along here until I get to the offset tool and drop down the menu until I get my slot tool here. Okay, and I'm going to click on this line. Okay, and that gives me a slot that is a 20mm radius at each end. But I need this to be bigger. I'm going to make this into, say, 100. Is that going to be too big? Could be a bit bigger, actually. Let's make it 150. 150. Okay. Yes, that'll do. Okay. Right, so that gives me a piece there. What I can do now is I'm going to add 2 circles onto this piece. What happened there? Oh, I didn't. You know what I didn't do? I didn't green tick it afterwards. Let's try that again. So there, right, 150. Go there, and then you have to confirm it. There we are. That's it. Now I can then take my circle tool. I'm going to draw a circle from here, from that point, origin, and I'm going to give that a diameter of 10, so it matches my borehole that I put onto the gear. And I'm going to draw a second circle at the other end here, there, and we're going to have that with a 10 mil radius as well. Sorry, diameter, yeah, and green tick that. All will become clear in a minute. So then now, if I rotate this around, you should see that I've got a shape drawn on the back of my gears with a circle here and here as well. Okay, so this is going to form the background to my piece here. We can change the side of this later on. So I'm going to take my extrusion tool now, and I'm going to pick up this piece here. Okay, this slot here, that. Now, by default, that wants to go forward. We want it to go backwards, so it's going on the back of the gears. And I also want to pick up these 2 circles here as well. So they're going to be included in this. Okay, so they should be filled in. That's good. Okay, good. And then we'll set a depth of this. Let's make this 20. Okay, there. Okay, right, green tick that. So that gives me a background piece. Now, what I need now are some pieces that come through, which are going to be the spindles that these gears sit on. So I'm going to take my extrusion tool again, and I'm going to just locate just those circles. So that circle there, and this circle here. Now, by default, it will think that they want to be new parts that are created. We actually want them to be added to it. Okay. Now, you may find that it turns red because Onshape loses its knowledge of what it's adding it to. So you may have to just tell it that you're going to be merging with. So merge scope and choose part 3, so you know that's what it'll be merged with. And you can see it's the same colour as the previous parts now. Right, green tick. There, cool. So now I have a background part. It's a bit long, those spindles. Let's make them a little bit shorter. Let's go back to our extrusion. Let's make that 15. Okay, got a bit long there. That's better. Okay, so there. Right, so I've got my 2 gears. I've got my background piece with spindles that are going through the bores, and my gears are a set distance apart of 150 mil, which, if you remember, that was the pitch diameter of this one, which was 60, plus the back pitch diameter of this one, which is 240, divided by 2 gave me 150 for this distance that the gear was transformed away from the other gear. Brilliant. Okay, now we get to some interesting bits. Let's see if we can put this into an assembly. So I'm going to start a new assembly. If you're starting from a blank drawing, you'll have a blank assembly to use. We're going to go to Insert here. I'm going to take the whole of Part Studio 2 because that's my second drawing I've just done. Okay, you will have just one drawing to work with. And there we have all my parts there. Okay, click the green tick, and we'll right click on our base, the background piece, and just fix that first. Okay, so then these gears, they are resting on the boards, but they're not actually sort of in place properly yet. They haven't got any mates associated with them, so we need to mate them first. So let's take our Revolute tool here, okay, and we'll zoom right in to our first gear here. And I want to try and find the midpoint of this. So remember, with Revolute, we get 3 points here. So that's the front, then there's a mid one, and that's the mid one there. Now, if you find that you can only get the front, and as you move your mouse, you lose the other 2, the trick is to make sure you're on one of them. Don't click, just make sure it's highlighted. Hold down your Shift key, that locks the other 2 in place, and then you can move your mouse onto the second one there. Okay, I didn't click that time, so let's try that again. So there, hold down my Shift, move on to that one, click, and that's placed that mate in this group here. Good. Right, let's see where it's going to. So it's going to go onto this spindle here. So again, I'm going to look for the mid one. So there's the end one. There's the mid one there. Click on that. And that's dropped that nicely onto that spindle for me. Okay, good. Green tick. Now let's have a look at our second one. So same idea. Let's zoom right in. We might need to, there we are. Okay, there, that's it. That's the mid one there. Select that. Find then the mid one on here, which is this one. Click that. And that should place that nicely onto my spindle there. Onshape always gives you an extra revolute that appears here. You can just close that off as long as we've got our 2 revolutes in place. Okay, so then our gears are now in place, but they are still slightly off center. They're not meshing yet, but we'll come to that in a minute. What we need to do now is to create a relationship between these 2 gears. Okay, so I'm going to take my gear relation tool here, and I have to tell it which mates I want it to include. Well, I want it to include revolute 1, okay, and revolute 2, okay. And next it needs to know the ratio between these 2 parts here. Now, so if you know the number of teeth that you have in the large gear, you divide that, so you divide the smaller gear with the larger gear. So it's going to be 12 divided by 48, okay? So that's my gear ratio. And I can actually type this onto here, 12 divided by 48, press enter, and that will give me my gear relationship. Okay, let's green tick that. Does that work? Okay, we can test that if we move one of our gears here. Yes, that's meshing with it. That's good. Okay, so that's working. Okay. Now, the problem is as well is that we know that this is not lined up correctly at the minute. Although it appears to be driving the other gear, yeah, it's not lined up. So we need to move one of the gears. So let's go to this revolute one here. Okay, and I'm going to go to edit on it. Okay, and I'm going to have a look at the offset on it. Okay, offset there. Okay, and it's the rotational angle that I need to adjust. Okay, now this needs to be the relationship between these 2 gears for it, which I think is going to be 15 degrees. Let's try 15 degrees. Okay, enter that. And green tick this. Does that rotate it? No, that's not the right part. I've got the wrong part here. Let's just undo that. So that's not that part. Oh, no, my mistake. I've got to open this up, then look at the mate connector. That's right there. Right, then look at that edit. That's the part. So I've got to move that around, and I've got to rotate it, rotation angle here by 15 degrees. Yes, I know I was tipping it before. There we are, 15 degrees. And now that should mesh those 2 gears together. So then now if I drive this one around, that is meshing that part exactly into it. Okay? All right. Which is quite cool. Now, if we now have a look at animating this, so I can right click on this, go to animate, yeah, and we'll try playing this. It should mesh through. Now there's a slight difference here. We might have to just change the distance or shrink down one of the gears in order for that to mesh properly, but that seems to be meshing quite nicely there. Remember with the animation as well, you can change it to be a loop, so it will continuously run through, okay, for it, yeah. Or you can change the value here. If you increase the numbers, it will go slower, so I'll make it up to 500, yeah, and then press play, it goes slower. If I decrease the numbers here, actually no, that's not the value, it's the number of steps at the middle part. 500 there, yeah, that will slow it down. If I decrease this, so make it say 100, that will then speed it up as it goes through. Okay, cool. fast gearing mechanism happening there. Cool. So there is a gear mechanism using the Spur Gear tool to create our gears, which saves a lot of time rather than having to draw each individual teeth and trying to create the gear that way. Okay, looking forward to seeing your results.